County Young Republicans. I'm joined by Chris Stewart, who is the U.S. Congressional candidate for the 2nd District. Chris, welcome, and thank you for agreeing to speak with me.
Pleasure, thank
you. Chris, please tell us about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Okay, I actually come from a kind of a non-traditional background for politics, at least. You know, this isn't the next step in my political career. Grew up on a farm in Cache Valley, one of 10 kids, milking cows.
Wow, very cool.
I was on my way to law school. My senior year of college, decided to go in the Air Force instead. My father was an Air Force pilot. Of the 6 sons, 5 of us have served in the military. So I wanted to do that, loved flying. I was flying jets for a while, flew combat helicopters for a while. Kind of cool, I have the world's record for the fastest nonstop flight in the world.
I saw that. Congratulations.
That's fun to talk about. And started writing books. I've written 15 books, New York Times best-selling author. And, you know, writing about ideas of American exceptionalism, this day, why we should have hope, kind of miracles in our past. And the last thing I'll say is that I'm a small business owner, CEO of a company that works in the environment and engineering and energy development.
Wow, very good.
And I'm the father of 6 kids. That's the most important thing.
That is. What are the principles that drew you to the Republican Party?
I guess the first principle that drew me to the Republican Party was my mom and dad. And that's not unusual. I think a lot of times kids learn from their parents, and I certainly learned from my parents. We had a family motto that my parents actually believed has been passed down through 4 generations now. It says, this family's creed is duty, honor, service to God, family, and country.
That's a great motto.
And when you believe that, the Republican Party, where else could it be?
Which of the founders had the greatest influence on you and your approach to politics?
Which one of the founders? Can I change the question just a little bit?
Sure.
I'm going to skip ahead 80 years and go to Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had a chance to write about him in some of my books. And George Washington, who I love and is just a hero of mine as well. Glenn Beck is a friend of mine, and we argue back and forth, is it Abraham Lincoln or George Washington? He's a George Washington fan. But to me, Abraham Lincoln was just an unbelievable character. He carried such an incredible burden, shepherding the country through the Civil War. He was a very religious man, suffered great personal loss, always kept going. For me, it's Abraham Lincoln was the greatest influence on my philosophy and how I would like to be.
In regards to your writing, what inspires you to write?
What inspires me to write? I'm not one of these guys who thought, when I was young, I'm going to write the great American novel. I was a bad writer, actually, when I was young. At least I thought I was.
Apparently not.
Maybe I was then. I took a class at BYU, a creative writing class, and did not do very well. But I don't know, I had an idea once for my first book. I thought, gosh, that would be a great story.
Maybe it's your passion and love for the country, maybe, that inspired you.
I think that's part of it, but when I first started writing, it was more about just telling a story. And as I developed as a writer, it's become more focused on, writing about things that really matter to me. And a lot of times that is about our nation.
What advice would you give to other young aspiring writers?
Writing is hard work, it really is. And when I talk to people, I'm really pretty honest with them, and I say it's a very difficult career to get into. And honestly, you don't make a lot of money. A lot of writers write full-time but don't make that much money. There's a few who, once you break on the New York Times list or national list, then you're doing pretty well. So if you're doing it for the money, or if you're doing it because you think it's going to be easy, then it's the wrong job. But if you're doing it because you love to write, because if you feel like, man, I've got stories inside me, I've got something, I need to put this on paper. Yeah, I can't go to bed at night until I get this written down. If that's kind of what drives you, then I think you're going to be a great writer. You're going to be driven by this desire, and that's where true talent comes, I think. And that's when the talent can come out and be developed. But you got to start with that ambition first.
What are your thoughts on the 16th and 17th Amendments?
It's been a long time since I talked about Constitution. I'm glad we were able to do that. I think our founding fathers got it right in the original manuscript of the Constitution. And some of the amendments aren't great ideas, actually, if you ask me. The amendment where we moved from state legislators choosing our senators, for example. Look, it was an enormous shift of power from the states to the federal government. And a lot of people don't get that, but it's really pretty simple. Who is more interested in states' rights? The state legislators. They want to keep those rights. And by allowing the popular vote to choose our senators, we took them out of it. And they're no longer fighting for senators, they're going to protect states' rights. And I think we've suffered because of that.
What accomplishments of your career are you the most proud of?
Wow. Honestly, the thing I'm most proud of is my family. And I know, that's what people say, but I mean, that's really the thing that I'm most proud of is my family.
Home is where the heart is, right?
Home is where the heart is. I think my proudest thing isn't being on the New York Times list or being on the national best-selling list. We were awarded the Communications Award by the Freedom Foundation at Valley Forge for their national book last year. And I think that was, to me, the most proud moment for myself.
What is the most important thing that you hope to accomplish as congressman?
That's an easy one. As a former military guy, I see the world is still a dangerous place, but that's not the thing that bothers me. It's the national suicide we're committing with our spending and our debt. It's the main reason I got into this race. We have to control our spending. We have to be serious about reform and strategic long-term reform. That's just far and away the most important thing that I want to tackle when I first get back to Congress.
How do you feel about immigration, and what processes would you propose to try to fix the situation?
Immigration there's actually good news about that, I think. One of them is that it's not the emotional issue it was 2 years ago or 4 years ago, and that's good. I think that's better for us to not have people be so upset about it.
Right.
And part of it is because there's other issues that have become so much important. The one we just talked about, spending on our debt. On our webpage, we've listed the 7 solutions that we feel are real critical right now, and one of them is immigration. And it starts with securing our borders, enforcing current laws. E-Verify is a big one to us. We are so pleased when Mitt Romney was talking about E-Verify last spring and last summer. As a business owner, I know that it's critical and that it would be an enormous step forward. I think if we concentrate on reducing the incentives for people to be here, that's the most important thing we can do in probably controlling immigration. And let me say this if I could. My brother's a federal judge in Salt Lake City. He's the Chief Justice here now in the state of Utah. One of the most beautiful things you can do is go to his courthouse and when he swears in new citizens. It's emotional, it's touching, and they are so grateful to be here.
Because they went through the process.
That's right, they went through the process. That's the way our immigration should be. It should be legal and it should be controlled, and we should welcome those folks in.
Well, you don't value something unless you work for it, right?
Very good. Yeah, that's right.
There's a very popular thing going on in the liberal media right now saying that Republicans want to ban contraception. Do you or any Republicans you know want to ban contraception? And do you believe that there is a war on women?
Well, it's a ridiculous idea, and why are we even talking about it?
I know.
For one thing, there's no one suggesting that anyone wants to take away contraception. And why are we being diverted by the subject? I mean, there's so many more important things. But it's one of this administration's how they can phrase the war on women.
Yeah.
It's
Do you
clearly,
think there's a war on women?
Well, I mean, from their perspective, they're trying to create one. Oh, again, let me just summarize. There is no war on women. President Obama would like to create the perception that there is to weaken us on social issues, but it's clearly just a diversion.
We've been told by the administration that the upheaval in the Middle East is the result of a YouTube video. Do you accept this premise? And if so, would you support a blasphemy law like the one proposed by the Egyptian president at the UN?
And this is important, and I have to go into a little detail on this.
Please do. I'm Jewish, so.
Okay. Yeah. As a former military officer, I get that this is a dangerous war. But let me tell you how to do it. 5 o'clock, September 11th. Going on 2 weeks ago now. President Obama, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, met together with a few other national security advisors, and at that point the assault on Benghazi had been going on for 90 minutes. And they decided, or were trying to decide what to do, and they had special forces that they could have moved into the area, and they could have saved those souls. There's 30 people there that were under assault. They had lost contact with their ambassador at this point, and they didn't send in these special forces. And the reason was, as they said, well, we were afraid of offending the Libyans and we didn't want to have to ask for permission. For heaven's sakes, our ambassador was missing. Our embassy was under assault. You don't have to ask for permission to defend American lives. And 8 hours later, the ambassador's body was being dragged through the streets. And it was a horrible miscalculation on their part, a horrible failure. It's inexcusable to me that they could have saved some of those folks and didn't, and then to try to blame it on a video, to try to blame it on this popular uprising that clearly is not the cause of that attack.
Do you think that the president from Egypt at the UN said that there should be laws, blasphemy laws?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Of course not.
Based upon stuff like this
No,
video?
of course not. I mean, our Constitution defends the right of free speech. Our Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It's absolutely sacred that we defend that right of people to speak.
And what solutions would you offer to help problems over in the Middle East?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is reestablish our authority there. I mean, Northern Africa and the Middle East views us as weakened. They view us as someone who's not going to be willing to intervene and to defend freedom and democracy there. They view us as hands off, and it's left this enormous power vacuum. And frankly, neither side trusts us anymore. The Israeli people don't trust us. We have not given them any reason to feel like they can be comfortable knowing that we will stand at their side. They're our only
Especially when you
allies.
say go back to 1967 borders.
Yeah, exactly. They're our only indefensible words. They're completely indefensible. Israel is our only ally in the area. It's the only democratically elected government in the area. We need for them to know, as has been the case since their inception, we need them to know the United States is going to stand with them. And then that sets the boundaries and the borders for all of the other nations around them, saying we can't cross over this line. And right now they don't know that, and it creates all sorts of uncertainty.
Inflation is here, but nobody is talking about it, but the cost of living is rising rapidly. What would you propose to help solve this problem?
Well, there's a couple things. If you want, let's talk about energy for a minute. Governor Romney talks about being energy independent in 7 years. We absolutely could do that. It's a realistic goal. I work in the energy sector. Fracking and horizontal drilling and other things, we could be producing most of our own energy, and maybe all of it if we consider Canada. That's one thing we can do to bring down the price. And the other is that this is complicated and it comes into the economics, which is maybe more than we have here. But Ben Bernanke and the Federal Reserve and QE3 is one of the most dangerous experiments in monetary policy that we've ever undertaken, and it's clearly going to lead to inflation eventually, and we're seeing the beginnings of that now.
The fiscal cliff is looming, and many say that we will have to raise the debt ceiling. Would you support this measure?
You know, it's interesting. I just had a meeting with Senator Lee about that this morning. We just kind of wanted to talk through some of these issues. And the fact of the matter is that this is a tough question, because are we going to allow the United States to default? Are we going to take people, my nephews who are serving in the military right now, and actually not pay them, not pay their families? I think that's completely unacceptable. But if we're going to vote for debt ceiling increase, it has to be with substantial reforms. And that's the thing we're all fighting for. Let's build in some substantial, some systematic reforms in there that make it so we get this ship turned around, so we're actually righting this thing and starting to move in the right direction.
All right, Chris, well, thank you for speaking to me. I really appreciate it.
You did a great job. It was a wonderful interview.
Thank you.
Thank you.